Hello and welcome back to The Warpath. My name is Nick Carlisle, recruiting writer for theosceola.com. That is Matt Lasser, the jack of all trades, do-it-all recruiting writer for Warchant.com. We have a great episode for you today with special guest, Florida State General Manager of Personnel, Darrick Yray, joining the show for the first 20 minutes or so, and then Matt is going to dive deeper into Florida State's defensive end recruiting, among many other things coming in the next 45 minutes or so. But Matt, how are you doing, buddy? Good to see you. The question that I think we need to get out of the way right now, did you watch Castaway?
I did. I watched it last night, actually. I made sure before we recorded. I was putting it off. I didn't think I was going to watch it. But I made myself sit down yesterday and actually watch it after. Yesterday was a long day between when we recorded the interview with Ray. I had another phone call interview of a story that's coming out at one point at Warchant.com. I was excited about. So it's a lot was going on yesterday, but after that was all done, I was finally able to sit down. I even golfed yesterday and still found time to watch Castaway. It was pretty productive day for me.
What did you think? What did you think of the movie? Was it? Yeah,
it was good. I wouldn't call myself like a film buff, but I did major in digital media, so I know all the like little extra stuff. I do appreciate how they were able to like make the movie without much dialogue, right? Like it's just like him going around and like you actually have to pay attention to it. It's not, you can't be on your phone. You can't be multitasking. You have to actually pay attention to the movie or else you're basically going to miss the whole entire movie. I thought some scenes were too long. Like the crash scene was way too long. Like way too long. Like you could go, like you could introduce the people so you know which dead one he found, but like crash, blackout, you wake up on an island. There's no reason for all the extra stuff.
So where would you rate the movies, like the movie in terms of your all-time movie list? Are we in like the 50s? Are we in like the
all-time
40s?
Movie list? Well, it's not my like kind of movie that I would say it's a top one.
Oh, really?
Right? But like not like my genre that I love, right? Even though I don't even know where you would go with that. But yeah, I'd say easily a good top 50. Like it's a classic for a reason, right?
I don't know. I think you like it a whole lot. I think you're.
I liked it.
I think you're lying. I think you're lying, as evident by
Wilson.
That's social media. Oh, for the audio listeners right now, the power of a bad Photoshop edit, my friends.
That's a pretty good one. You got my fingers
no,
right,
it's
too.
not bad. If you follow Matt Lasser on Twitter or X, which if you aren't, you should definitely by now. You should follow both of us while you're at it. Really bad Photoshop edit of the helmet that normally sits on Matt's shoulders, now replaced by Wilson. And it gets worse. It gets worse too.
Oh no.
Yeah. I know that you're not really one for growing beards. Where is it? Oh, I can't find it now.
Oh, no. You made me Tom Hanks Hanks while on the island.
Yeah, here we go. Oh my gosh, that's really.
Is that AI or Photoshop?
That's AI.
AI. I was about to say. I was about to say that's way too good of a Photoshop job to not be AI.
Well, so to my credit, the Wilson ball was all me. But
no, it's a good. The AI, edges are nice.
The AI beard. I couldn't quite figure out how to do that. So
that's good.
I don't think I've ever seen you with a substantial beard in the time that I've known you. So I don't even think that this is remotely possible.
My mustache gets too puby for my liking to let it go any farther. So that's what always happens.
It's also just blatantly not your hair
no,
color. You've gone from for the brown hair to a almost like a extreme yellow blonde mustache, and then
it's sunburned. That's what it is.
It's sunburned.
Sun.
I don't know. Whatever. I think you look pretty good. I think you look ready for football season.
It could work.
That's so good.
That's good. That was good. I like that.
Yeah. Honestly, that was a shower idea. That was like this would.
So you think about me in the shower. That's not what I really wanted to hear to start my day.
That's you know what? Fair play. Fair play. I broke out the Photoshop. You You get the shower jokes. Okay.
Yep.
Rolling through some other things to clean up from last week's show. Obviously, kind of a cluster in terms of planning last week's show. We had a couple of decommitments and then a surprise commitment to where we kind of had to record things in different spots. Information came flowing in at different times. I know that you spoke to some sources of not only about Isaiah Williams in terms of hope that this may be the last stop on the train circuit here for Isaiah, but also the impact that his commitment may have on some of Florida State's other linebacker targets. I'll give you the floor. Kind of what are you hearing about Williams, and then what are you hearing about the recruitment of Forpo, which you would think that Florida State may be out of now that they did bring Williams on board, but it sounds like they're still right in the thick of it.
Yeah, just to touch on them quickly before we get to the interview with D-Ray. Right after the Isaiah Williams thing happened, obviously that was a very scramble of a day. Wake up at 8:30 and he's committed to Florida State again, and have to go on Jeff Cameron's show and then have to re-record our part of the podcast. But talking to some people, it's pretty clear from his camp's point of view that they do think this is it. There is some confidence that this could be the last stop. Now, obviously, that's always said when a kid first commits is what you got to be skeptical of. So yeah, we're still going to wait till the ink dries until he's signed, but the signs are looking good from multiple people. That's from stuff I've talked to people. That's stuff from our Michael Langston has talked to people as well. So it kind of goes, that's what the confidence is now, is that it's going to stick. And in terms of Forkpa, obviously reported earlier this week, we said it last week, it was likely that it was expected that he's probably going to visit for the Alabama game. That is officially set now, according to sources close to him. And I've also heard that it looks like a decision is going to come down in September. So and we'll see where that goes. And that goes to our point of we said we always felt like DQ was very impressionable and he wanted to be close to that last visit. Him deciding in September, or that being the likely time, makes it better that he's coming now. Like we talked about that last week of like, well, I'd rather him come to the Miami game. This is going to go all the way till December. But if that's not the case, I like him coming for that Alabama game because that's the best atmosphere you're going to get before that date, right? So, or not date, that time period. So yeah, that's pretty much about it. Oh, well, also more with Forkpa is that like it didn't, from the source I talked to, it was like, well, if anything, I think it'll make him want to come to FSU more because he's seeing a big time guy like Isaiah Williams going there. And, you know, it would be the first time. I looked it up. I did the research. So it would be the first time with two blue chip linebacker commits since 2019 with Jaleel McRae, who's now on the staff for McRae, and Kalen DeLoach. So that's a cool little chance they got there.
And hey, Kalen DeLoach turned out to be a pretty good linebacker when all was said and done.
Very good.
So positive things developing for Florida State's linebacker recruiting. Obviously, you got the commitment, maybe in a really good position to get another one. Well, and you know, you talk about it. I think we talked about it last week. August 30th doesn't necessarily mean, oh, that has to be the last visit. You know, you can come, you can decide to December. Maybe he decides to come again for the Miami game. But Alabama and Miami are the two games that you really want to pinpoint here because the schedule, a little bit after that, a couple of lesser enticing games. Pitt, Wake Forest. I think those are the two home games. And then you got Virginia Tech. So not bad home games, but not the big hitters. Florida State's big hitter recruiting weekends are in the early part of the season this year. So that's something to take into account for. Speaking of that Alabama game on the 30th that we're all anticipating and a lot of recruits around the country are anticipating, our special guest today, General Manager of Player Personnel, Darrick Yray, did join us yesterday to chat a little bit about what goes into that Alabama game in terms of bringing in recruits, and dove in a little bit to kind of his day-to-day processes, how he thinks, and the lessons and the approaches that may have changed, or the things that he may have learned from not only the success of putting together a roster for the 2023 season, but kind of the failures of what that 2024 season was. So we hope you enjoy our conversation with Darrick. We'll be back after that interview. Well, Matt, I know you and I are extremely excited to be joined by our guest today, Darrick Yray, General Manager of Player Personnel. We got to get that title correctly. Darrick Yray now entering his fourth season as general manager of personnel with Florida State. Darrick, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's fantastic to see you in a setting that's not the both of us sitting on a bench outside of Moore Center and you wishing that we're not there on that bench outside of the Moore Center. But salutations, my friend. How are you doing? Thank you so much for joining the show.
Yeah, Matt, Nick, appreciate you guys having me on. I wouldn't say wishing you guys weren't there, just more so empathizing with you guys braving the heat and all the conditions that Florida weather loves to throw at us. So,
yeah, no, I'm sure you're enjoying your time inside while we're baking out there in the sun. But yeah, great to have you on today. It's certainly an exciting time for you. I'm sure dead period ending soon, getting kids back on campus for this Alabama game coming up in a couple of weeks. Where do you start when it comes to planning a visit weekend like this? Do you try and be more strategic with who you bring in for big games? And obviously you can't specify who's going to be there in a couple of weeks, but do you be strategic with who you bring in, or do you try to take the approach of kind of just ringing a dinner bell and bringing in as many kids that want to come as possible?
No, I don't necessarily, not a dinner bell by any means. Obviously, it's going to be an exclusive experience, and we want it to be an exclusive experience. And so when you look at what that tracks towards, it's an honor and a privilege, and we want to make sure we're attracting the best, and the best not only to showcase here, but also to showcase the great environment that game is going to be against a great opponent in the University of Alabama. The setting's going to speak for itself, being inside a newly renovated Doak. But also having the opportunity to showcase, parts of our facility that we'll be able to run tours through on that day for all of our athletes that are going to be here that we are recruiting. And, we'll be pretty close to 100, if not above that, throughout that. So when you talk about total prospects being here, you're moving around 300 plus people around a group of 70 plus thousand. So it's going to be a heck of an environment. And our recruiting operations staff, it starts and stops with them. Molly Jacoby was a phenomenal addition. So just bringing her in and the pedigree that she has and being around different places, whether it was, with Coach Brown up at North Carolina, but then also with Coach Smart up at Georgia, showing different things, and having her has been invaluable also with her staff, with Courtney Caswell, Sha'Carri Hopkins, who came through our student program, and then also Mariana McCourt. They do a phenomenal job of planning and executing the vision of what Coach Norvell wants.
To follow up on that, you said they'd be able to tour around. Is that the new football only facility? Are you guys going to be able to let them in there, or do they have to wear hard hats? Like what's all the logistics behind that?
Yeah, there'll be some hard hat tours that'll be available, and just it's been great, and credit to our administration for President McCullough and Mr. Alford and all the way down, and all the boosters and all the folks that have made so much of an investment. It's going to be a game changer for us, and just to see that go up, looking at the progress that's been made over the last couple of years, and now that there's some graphics that are going up in the windows and it's starting to take shape. I had the opportunity to walk through there yesterday evening, and it's really, really, really great to see it come full circle, and can't wait to move in there.
What's kind of been the reception from some of the kids that in this 26 class that are already committed in terms of coming in with their OVs over the summer? What's kind of the reception that they've seen to some of the things like the virtual reality set, kind of seeing over time how these facilities and more importantly, Doak has come together? What's been their reaction in terms of the progress and kind of like the final structure that's coming into place in terms of how things are going to look in a couple weeks from now?
Yeah, I think the amount speaks for itself of investment that's gone into it, right? I mean, when you start totaling between the two projects of what that is, but the size is the first thing that's commented on of how big it actually is. And, it's one thing for them to walk through and see walls and what spaces are going to be, and you can throw enough renderings at them till you're blue in the face doing it. But to be able actually to see and feel and really to walk through the space and have that and be immersed in that experience, I think that's a game changer for us and everything that's going to be there. Now that graphics are going up, now it feels like a football building, and lockers being installed and different items that are in there. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and then to kind of go back to the game. You talked about the big game day experience for a huge game of Alabama, how it's going to be crazy with 70,000 people there. How much do you think that matters to recruits now in kind of an NIL landscape of, this atmosphere is so cool, I want to play here? How big of a factor do you think that is? I think
all of it matters, and I think this is the hardest thing about recruiting and why it all matters, but also the easiest thing too. No one knows what necessarily is going to be the difference. And so, even with the settlement now and everything that's there with the House case, well, everyone can offer a sum of money to someone now, right? And before it was if you had a strong collective. Now it's okay. Everyone is relatively on the same level playing field, besides a few others that may be a little bit different. And so when you're looking at that, what are still going to be the points of differences? Well, it still comes back to the investment in the person, who they're getting developed by, who they're getting coached by, what the strength staff is, and every little piece, what their major, what they want in their life and campus, and where they want to live. All of that's going to matter. So the game day experience and who they're going to do it in front of. And we have the greatest fans in the country. And I mean, you go out there and you watch Osceola dismount off Renegade, throw that spear down. I mean, yeah, like I'll put that up against anyone. And you get someone to take part into putting that arm back and forth while the Warchant's playing. Yeah, I'll put that up against anyone. Like, let's look at the traditions that we have. Let's get them around our fans and show them what Doak is.
Kind of along those lines, obviously in Ireland last year, you were in Orlando to start 2023, obviously away to 2022. Being able to have a home game like this to start the season, I think the last big home game that Florida State had where you could bring in all these recruits like this was probably Notre Dame in, what was it, 21, 22? I think
the last big opener, Notre Dame, yeah.
Right. Is there an advantage, do you think, to kind of having these games on campus immediately to start season rather than having it being at a neutral site like it has been in recent years? What are kind of the advantages that come with having an event like this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the home game, and just to speak selfishly from the recruiting side and the evaluation side, we can actually have interaction with the recruits on campus, to where if it's a neutral site game like it was in Orlando or even New Orleans, we're able to provide tickets and comp admissions, but there's no interaction that could be had. So for this game specifically, to be able to have a collection of talent that's going to be here, that's going to take part, that we're going to be able to spend time and be deliberate in the time we spend, I think that speaks for itself, and that is a game changer for us. And it's a long extended unofficial visit and other visits that are going to take part. And, I'm looking forward to that opportunity.
With that, like, what has the interest been like in this game from recruits, for people who want to come? Because, I mean, you're competing against other big games all across the country, right? Like a close example is LSU at Clemson. There's a bunch of other marquee games going on, Ohio State, Texas, or whatever. How has the interest been in people wanting to come to Florida State, Bama? It seems like it's been a lot from our point of view, but just how has it been competing against those other ones?
Yeah, I mean, we always look at that as we're selecting these games, and also not just those games, but our goal is as many games as we can get our priority guys to. We want to do that, but also comparing about, it's not just this game, throughout how we view it in the home game season, what other games conflict with other home games too. And right, whether it doesn't matter necessarily the opponent we're playing, we want to make sure that they experience Doak at some point throughout the year. And so we have those consistent touch points.
You talked a little bit about the house settlement before. How has things changed for you since that house settlement went through? And also kind of a follow-up to that, how tapped in do you personally have to be when building a roster with what's potentially coming in the future? How closely do you work with Michael Alfred on things like that to know what's coming? Just how has the house settlement kind of shaped how you do things, and how prepared do you have to be to kind of for a landscape that's pretty consistently evolving?
Yeah, they get to work for the best athletic director in the country. And then, because I say that, his not only how he leads and the vision that he shares, but also the communication line that both of us have with each other. There's probably not a day that goes by that we're not on the phone with each other or in person, just talking about the ever changes that are or that led up to this settlement, because we want to stay on the cutting edge and stay competitive with the rest of our peers and make sure we're setting the standard in all spaces of what that is.
Yeah, and even after last season, it seems you guys have recruiting momentum. Even after going 2-10, didn't matter. You came back and you got a guy like Usman Kroma. You flipped Tylon Lee. What kind of went into that at the end there? How did that kind of push over to this new cycle? I know you can't say names or whatever and all that stuff, to get a bunch of kids for this game, even coming after off of a season like that. Yeah,
I mean, effort. At the end of the day, effort's going to win, and staying consistent in the process. Obviously, it's not as simple as a formula of saying, hey, you give the best effort and you're going to get the best player. That's not always the way it's going to go. But we want to be consistently in those battles, and we want to win more then we lose. And if it's up to me, I want to win all of them, right? I mean, there's no reason that we shouldn't, right? And when we're looking at, we're going to give full effort, we're going to have a plan of attack, and we have to make sure that they fit us. But at the same time, with that, the biggest power we have in any situation is the power to walk away. And so there may be something that gets uncovered throughout the evaluation process at some point that, hey, we might worry about the fit. And it's okay to walk away from that deal, because the painful mistake at that point of an investment of a year of recruiting, well, it's a lot less painful than 3 years of investment of they're already on the roster and we made the wrong decision.
You talk about some of those longer recruitment, and Matt mentioned Oos, which in my opinion was one of the more impressive recruiting wins that you and Mike have had since you guys have been here. That was a 3-year recruitment, right? That was a long, gritty recruitment. What goes into some of those more long-term recruitments where you get on a guy early and you have to continue to recruit them for a long period of time, and especially in Cromart's case, be resilient and show a lot of effort, as you say, when you invest that much in a kid, and FSU wasn't initially his first choice. So what goes into some of those longer recruiting battles, and how rewarding is it for you to see a guy like Chroma, you hit on him, and now he's in a position in fall camp to get some serious playing time in year one?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's a team effort. And the only way you're going to win those high-level battles, and I think too much of, it's never just going to be one person. It's never going to be just two people. And when you have it running the right way, it's a collection. And one of the biggest things of when you guys are sitting out there on the bench and you guys ask them questions like, who's the biggest influence? Who's the reason? And they talk about, well, it's this staff. That's the answer I want. So it's not just one person, because where we go to language being a force multiplier of saying the same things, but in different ways, and selling the same vision and talking about all the great things that we have here. If multiple people are tied in, I might not have the best relationship with an athlete, but is there someone else around in the circle, in the family, a coach, someone who is in that circle who does have influence that we can key on that relationship? And it takes everyone in the building.
Yeah, and all that comes down to little details too. I know you're big on that. I remember one time you had a leaf blower outside trying to clean up the front area of the Moore Center before kids walked in. Just talk about little details. What are some of the little things that go into these visit weekends, that go into having kids come for the Alabama game or official visits? Like, what are some of those little things that maybe us from a big picture standpoint wouldn't even think of?
Yeah. So, and again, our staff does a great job, our recruiting staff as a whole. And so when we're sitting there and we're going through plans, I always try to look at it. Okay, let's start with necessarily what could go wrong, so you're not surprised by anything. And so, and talk about, we have so many people who volunteer their time and sacrifice, from our student interns. We have 30 on the recruiting operations side and 30 on the personnel side. They're content folks and everyone who oversees those areas, right? When we're working through that, it's an all-inclusive vacation. And so when we've been on somewhere, you've gone to a nice hotel or you've gone on a nice cruise, whatever it may be, and you go to the front desk and you're not greeted with a smile, you're going to feel a certain type of way about that. And so we want to roll out the garnet carpet for every single one of these folks that are coming on this campus. And it has to look a certain way, and it has to look to the standard. And if something is out of place, 99% right is not right. Like, I want to be perfect in everything that we do.
Coach Norvell earlier, I believe it was in the spring, he was kind of asked about changes to the recruiting operation. And I'm not going to ask for the nitty details or the dirty secrets, but in terms of growth with you and your recruiting operation from last year to this year, where do you think that not only your operation has experienced most growth, but where do you personally feel like you have grown the most in the last calendar year?
Yeah, good. It's a really good question. I think you're always evolving. I don't think you can ever be in the space to where you say stagnant. And I even talk about this openly with Coach Norvell of, it's amazing how much this job and this role has changed from the time I came in here to what it is now, with all the changes that have occurred. And so when you're staying on the cutting edge, you lean on peers, whether they're in the conference, in the area, or around the country, of how things are doing a certain way. Are you thinking about it correctly? And so just the areas of growth, you can always be better in evaluation. Hindsight's always 20/20 of something you wish you could do different, but also looking back on data and numbers to reflect on why you made that decision, why it didn't work out, and see if you can find a correlation of maybe doing it a different way. I look at efficiencies and kind of how I view my role of what I am, one, to be a resource to coach in the program, but also, I want to stay in the front line to put out fires so everyone around in this program can work more efficiently. And so if I'm doing that correctly to where I can do all the jobs that really no one wants to be involved in, or really no one thinks could turn into a bigger problem, I want to take advantage of those and making sure we're solving them so everyone around here can work more efficiently and put them in positions to win, right? How can we help our coaches and assist them so they can coach football and go back to winning games, right? How can we help our recruiting staff being put in the best position possible? There's no job that is too big or too small, right? And so I believe in something that I firmly believe is we have to check the ego at the door to make sure, and whether it's setting up tables and chairs, cleaning golf carts, all of that's on the table because it all has to look a certain way.
Do you feel like an NFL GM now? Like, I mean, you said it changed so much. Is it just like day-to-day wise, is you just like, I mean, Michael Lombardi is one of your peers now. Does it just feel so much different?
Yeah. I mean, obviously the roles changed. There are huge differences compared to this, couple buddies that I lean on who are in those seats for various NFL teams that I've, seek their counsel in the last couple of years and had different visits with. We talk about, what's common and what's not. And, they look at me and they're like, oh, your job is way different than ours. Right? So when you look at the evaluation, and obviously this role is kind of like a quarterback. I think you get too much credit when things go well, and I think you get too much blame when things don't go well, and rightfully so. It comes with the seat. But at the end of the day, we're still going to move as a group and as an organization, and my job is to execute the vision that Coach Norvell wants.
And you say things are different, and you have GMs kind of over the country that you're not specifically your role, but whoever is acting in kind of what your role entails, they have different power levels. I mean, you have a GM in Andrew Luck in Stanford that was able to fire the head coach. Not leading anywhere with that, but it's like it just feels like everything is so different from place to place. How do you kind of evaluate where you sit and how you evolve in your ecosystem with your operation?
Yeah, I mean, again, it starts with working with great people, and so for everyone around, and working with Bruce Warwick on a day-to-day, who is our sports supervisor, and his experience that he's had in the NFL, obviously with Mr. Alford and Coach Norvell, and just kind of that leadership group. I mean, I think when you look around, my job is I want to do my job to the best of ability. And again, not having a job that's too big or too small, whatever it is, whatever it's assigned to do, that's the task at hand. And at the end of it, I'm driven by competition. I want to win at anything you do. You say, if I see you guys on the bench and you say, let's race, I'm going to race you. And if I don't get you that time, I'm going to say, run it back, and we're going to find a way to win. Like that's all I want to do. That's what I'm driven to do. And at the end of the day, if we can better young people's lives throughout it, and they can have a great experience while coming here and walking out with a degree, mission accomplished.
So how difficult was last season for you then? You talk about your competitiveness, your willingness to win, your drive to win. You go from a 13-1 season and all the what ifs and what could have been to a season that everybody will agree just didn't go the way that y'all wanted to. How did you personally handle last season? And what was something that you learned from those experiences?
Yeah, I tell you, anytime you go through tough seasons and it's not how you drew it up, and you try to you evaluate everything, you analyze everything, of why, where the misses, what occurred, but also realize, and I took it as a challenge to respond, and so it's not necessarily a sin to get knocked down, but it's a sin to stay down. And looking forward to the response of what this year's going to be, and I don't have any plans to live through a season like that again, or have any close to what that is. But I'm excited for the response and the football team that we've built for the 2025 year.
Yeah, I don't want to dwell too long on that season, as I'm sure you don't want us to dwell on that season too long. But you talked about putting out fires and evaluating things and trying to make sure that you're not surprised by anything. You can rebound and respond through adversity. From the outside looking in, you could probably think that internally you may have felt like the sky was falling, but then again, you were able to bounce back and really hit some home runs on signing day. Just talk about how you went about kind of handling that early adversity in that season, being able to get things back on track, get the board a little bit better situated, and end on signing day with a couple of really nice pieces.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I go back to what is the job that you're assigned to do. And so at that current time, it's the acquisition of talent always. And so, for lack of a better term, right now, this is the roster we have, the hay's in the barn for 2025. So how can we add for 2026 in that next group, whether it's through high school, whether it's through junior college, whether it's through the transfer portal, by any means, if they have eligibility left and they're going to make our football team better, I want to find a way to make sure they can do that and see if they actually will help. And so that's how I look at it, being task oriented and staying, and I guess, for lack of a better term, keep the main thing. Right.
So, yeah. How excited are you for this Bama game? With all that said, all this roster talk, how excited are you to finally see this roster go out there?
Yeah, I'm excited for practice before that, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a few days we have before. Obviously, I think we're 10 days out right now before that game. But when that opportunity comes, we'll be ready, and I'll be excited for it. But we've got some practice to take care of first, and some fine tuning of some things.
Awesome stuff. Darrick Yray, General Manager of Personnel, thank you so much for your time and joining us today. Amazing conversation as always. And you and I, or Matt and I, will see you out on that bench, I'm sure, sometime soon.
Look forward to it. So you all take care. Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, Darrick.
Thanks, man. And that was our interview with GM Darrick Yray. I thought it was a great interview. I thought he talked about stuff he hasn't really talked about before. I don't think we've heard much from him about last year and how that went. And it's kind of cool to see the little things. Obviously, we get to see D-Ray not on a daily basis, but pretty close to a daily basis. Not from from outside, from being the outside looking in, literally through the window. But it's I thought it was cool what he said and the perspective he gave. Even from talking about how he's not really I was like, how are you? Do you feel like an NFL GM? And he was like, well, no, I talk to NFL guys, and our job's still completely different. I think that's a cool perspective, as people think they're pretty similar now, but I guess it's not.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, in hindsight, listening back to the interview, that I think maybe we should have pressed a little bit more on is the fact that he said something to the effect of understanding when to walk away from a recruitment. I thought that was.
I found that really interesting too.
I thought that was an interesting
really
comment, because there have been multiple recruitments that Florida State has experienced this cycle, and definitely last cycle too, where things just didn't seem to work out. And it's not always because FSU did something wrong or the kid is asking for too much money. There are situations when you discover something and you say, we need to cool the jets on this. So whatever that may be, a huge red flag in terms of culture fit or personality or whatever it may be. There are instances where things, you uncover something and it just doesn't work out. And in the court of public perception, you see a kid back off or an official visit canceled or whatever, and you immediately think, oh, this staff completely mucked it up. And that's not always the case. So I found that to be an interesting comment, but I also liked what I heard in terms of him being honest in terms of his competitiveness, in terms of him saying, I want to win every single recruitment that we get into. And obviously with the note that you're not going to win every single recruitment that you get into. I think that's the right mentality that you need to. That's actually the mentality that you absolutely have to have. But I thought that was some nuance in talking to Darrick, and it honestly wasn't a response that I was necessarily expecting.
No, that's why I really enjoyed the interview, was just because I felt like he hasn't talked about some of that stuff before. We went into it trying to focus on the Alabama game and the little parts of that, and we got into this stuff I don't think we really knew we were going to when we first started, or when he first jumped in the StreamYard with us. So I thought that was cool. Again, D-Ray's a good dude, very detail oriented, and yeah, I mean it's kind of cool to see him talk to us like that. And we'll probably have him on again at some point because it's just that much important of a role at Florida State if he's going to be the GM for years to come. So again, I was really excited about that. The main takeaway, I like what you said about the walking away part. You see that a lot, right? It's just, and the staff will always be the punching bag for it, which sucks because that's the perception of it, is that, oh, the kid just doesn't want to come here. But you're right, you're not going to win every recruitment, right? An average recruiting class is probably 25 people, right? 25 kids?
Roughly about that.
And how many official visits were there this summer? 75 to 100?
Quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Much more than last year. So
you can't really expect a hit rate of your hit rate's gonna be around 25% every year, right? That's the reality of the situation.
And then they did a better job this year of
casting a wider net. Yes,
there you go, and bringing in a lot of kids that maybe they're a little bit further down on your board, but you plant that seed. You plant that seed to get roots for a tree to come later if you need it. So I again, maybe a little bit biased because we did the interview, recency bias, of course, but I did think it was a interesting interview. So a lot of the show is a little bit of catch up from things that we couldn't get to last week. Obviously, next week, that's the big game. That's the game that everybody is flocking to, waiting for, and that definitely includes some recruits that are going to be obviously next year's targets, this year's targets. Everybody's going to have eyes on that game, whether they're
even basketball recruits.
Absolutely.
Like basketball has a super talented list for next week, and we're pretty much next week we're just going to go down the list with all the important guys and talk about them. Like that's going to be next week's episode, and that's probably going to be most of the week's episodes whenever they have a home game. So that's to look forward to. But yeah, we need to. Last week was long, and we still didn't get to everything.
Yeah. One of those things that we didn't get to were edge rushers, and one of those big edge rushers that right now does not look like he's going to be at the Alabama game like it was previously reported or scheduled way back in the summer. And that is, I think he's a 5-star with On3. You'll have to correct me on that, Matt. Trenton Henderson. It does not look like he is going to be at the Alabama game. This is a recruitment that Florida State still seems to really struggle with, considering the fact that this is a Pensacola kid. They just haven't been in this recruitment for a long, long time. And they're teetering around the edge, certainly on the outside looking in. Do you think that this is a recruitment that FSU could become more of a prominent factor in with their performance on the field? Like say we get down the road to November, Florida State's putting in a good season. Is this something that you think they can get back into, or do you think that they're kind of permanently outside that first ring of schools? And obviously Henderson is committed to LSU right now.
Yeah, I think 100% this is a performance-based one. 100%. That's the way it's kind of seemed, right? Like that's the first name to still be coming up, but it not really being realistic at this point in time because he's had an official visit scheduled twice. He had one visit. He had one scheduled for the summer, canceled that. He came to campus to watch his brother compete in a camp, and then said he was coming to the Alabama game for an official visit. Then came down to a Final 3, and then committed to LSU. The crazy part about this is I think back in January, February, when we were doing junior days, I thought Florida State led. Like that's where I was in this recruitment, is that Florida State. And also it felt like I don't think anyone else had pushed as hard yet. I think Florida State at the time was the only one like really pushing as like this kid's really talented. I want him. And then Florida came in a little bit, and then everyone else, the floodgates basically opened. Right?
Yeah, it's the panhandle effect, I like to call it. It just seems like there's always one or two big time prospects in the panhandle that Florida State gets to early, but then either they don't go full speed on the gas or they let up a little bit and it blows into a national recruitment. Like
Amari Thomas, Caden Hall, those are
Darian Clarity, right? Last class, Squirrel.
Yep. Tyler Lee.
Yeah. So I would say I was kind of in the same. I don't know that I would have declared Florida State the leader outright, but this is definitely a recruitment that I felt over time through the spring that they just should have been more involved in. And whatever was not quite right, whether it really was the 2-10 season or maybe it was the new coaching staff come in. Maybe T. Knight took a while to get his feet set under him in terms of recruiting some of these defensive linemen. I think that is a part of it too. The initial impressions of T. Knight were good, but as the spring kind of went on, you kind of saw a little bit of a not a reluctance or a hesitancy, but some of the similar complaints that we had heard in the past of coaches maybe not hitting the trail hard enough. I feel like that was a part of it too. And I don't know, maybe your thoughts on this. It feels like more so today, more than anything, if you're not actively invested and consistently, and every recruitment is different, but if you're not consistently showing these kids love and showing these kids attention, that can sometimes backfire on you. And it depends kid to kid, obviously.
Yeah, and NIL matters, and we all always say like, oh, relationships aren't as big of a deal anymore. They're not. That's true. And money means a lot when it comes down to things. But also, if you have a relationship with the kid, you have a better chance that they'll come for cheaper, right? It's an opportunity cost thing, right? It means more to them to come there, and they'll take the less money. Now, again, the money is still a big factor in a lot of these recruitments, and for most of them, it's one of the deciding factors. But again, if you're really close, it's like the Nick Saban discount back when he was at Alabama. Was these kids were willing to take less money to go to Alabama because they were getting coached by Nick Saban. Florida State doesn't really get that discount, but you still need to keep the relationship up to have a chance at that. I also think it's hard to recruit for a jack role. Like we call it edge, we call it the end. It's very confusing to me still because I think I need to see it on the field. If we watched practice, we were allowed in practice, which again, I don't care that we're not. It's actually less work for us to be out of practice. So it works, but it's I think I would be able to visualize it more, but I think it's hard to recruit to the jack position because it sounds more like a specialty role than an every down thing, right? And I think that's where this performance or having to see them play comes into it. Because how much do you think Trenton Henderson was watching Nebraska football last year?
Probably not a lot, to be honest. I don't think Nebraska was really involved all that much at all. So
no, and exactly. So I think it's one of those things where we need these kids in this area to see this defense that just kind of really visualize the jack, right? And I think that's just what it really needs, and that's why a lot of this has become performance-based.
You talked about NIL a little bit earlier ago, and one of the kids that NIL may prove a role in terms of the recruitment is Asharri Charles. And it's not to say that is his main driving force, but in terms of programs like Texas Tech and Miami being the two, obviously him being committed to Miami that you would be competing with, and Asharri Charles is the lone official visitor for the Alabama game right now. Obviously Isaiah Williams would be the second one, but he is already committed to the program. In terms of uncommitted prospects, he is the lone one coming on in. How realistic? Well, first of all, Asharri Charles to me is a very weird recruitment by Florida State because Florida State was a program that was on him pretty early. They liked him.
He came
early.
for a camp, 2 years ago?
Yeah. I think last year, actually.
Sorry, 2024.
And then that communication just fell off a cliff, and it didn't really continue until the spring where things started to pick up as some domino pieces fell. It's really weird recruitment by Florida State here. But now you're getting into a situation where he's committed to Miami. You have Texas Tech also pursuing. He's going to be coming in on the Alabama during the Alabama game. His teammate is going to reportedly be here as well with Johnny Jones. How realistic do you think that the chances are for Florida State to get back into this recruitment, especially with the powers that be with Texas Tech and Miami?
Yeah, I mean, I think him coming on the visit's a big deal. And by the way, yeah, he is the only official visitor as of now. I think Isaiah Williams is actually an unofficial visit. I looked at our list and that had changed. And I think Cam Wilson is also expected to be unofficial. So as of now, I do think he's the only official visitor scheduled for Alabama. And yeah, I mean, him coming on campus is a big deal, right? Where I felt like this one, where FSU started to get in this one more, was obviously they missed on some guys. And then you saw Chauncey Kennan tweet at Asharri that like, yo, we got to start coming to FSU. And then the Charles Lester relationship, because Charles Lester also went to Venice for a year. And so it's kind of, I think the relationships that he has on a team with players and commits helps a lot there too. But yeah, it's going to be from a financial standpoint, that's a hard one to get in on, right? Unless you are willing to break the bank for the kid and do what you did with Usman last year. This one feels like a long shot, especially when you're going up against Texas Tech. Like Texas Tech, will be the highest offer. You know that for black gold, right? Like that's what it is.
LaDainian Guyton is one hell of a football player, by the way, and he committed to Texas Tech a couple of weeks ago at like the number 1 or number 2 recruit in the 2027.
And he's a 2027. Yeah, he's not even a 2026.
So the black gold is very alive and well. But
I heard it came from a bad piece of land too. That's from my Texas sources that I don't know how true the story is, but like I've heard it was they got the land cheap, but I don't know. That's a urban or a Texas legend rumor. But but yeah, it's when you're going up against the Texas Tech, they're going to be the highest offer, right? Like that's just what you've seen. Even in like Micah Pettis, Texas Tech was coming after him hard. All these Lee Hunter, who Florida State lost to Texas Tech, and you had Gus Malzahn as former coach on staff now. That's a defensive lineman. Like they have a billionaire who played football at Texas Tech and has all the money in the world to spend, who's actually trying to get the rules to change so this is controlled. But I think he said in an interview with Andy and Ari on 3 that was like, well, just because I don't like the rules doesn't mean I'm going to use them to my advantage right now. So that's Texas Tech. They are going to get
honestly, they overpaid for Lee Hunter. If we wanted,
they overpaid for everybody. That's what they're doing.
Well, I understand, but it's like contextually speaking, it's not like FSU lost a great big piece without Lee Hunter. I mean, that was a money to call it a money grab would be generous. I mean, the price.
Oh, it was 100% a money grab.
Price that we both heard for Lee Hunter coming out of the portal was bat insane. It was crazy.
Which was the same thing they were offering Micah Pettis too, right?
Right.
Or really close, yeah.
I want to speed through the rest of these guys real quick because we are against a time barrier here. Tell me about Chris Carbin. Tell me about Gustav Henrik Raz. These are guys that you are a little bit more familiar with than me, since these are more recent kids. Tell me about kind of where they are in terms of their recruitment by Florida State right now.
So I will say Knighton and the staff has done a really good job of rebuilding this edge board or this jack linebacker board, whatever you want to call it, because they jumped off, like after you missed on a few guys, they really kind of jumped and started running right away with offering new ones. Chris Carbin is one who's committed to Georgia Tech. From what we've heard, Florida State's going to be a factor here, that there's some weight to that FSU offer. I think the Miami game is what we're looking at for a visit. That's from sources that he told me that he hadn't scheduled anything yet, but from sources it sounded like the Miami game. And and then you go to Gustav Henrik Raz from Sweden. We talked about him a little bit last week, just because of his name. And then we got into Castaway because Wilson Zaire, but all these international kids. But yeah, Gustav is one that I think when Florida State offered, because it was Norvell who called him first before he even offered him, and Norvell said, "I like you. I actually need to talk to the staff." And then next week, and we'll find out if there's an offer there. And then obviously, what Mike Norvell says happens. So he got the offer a week later, and now he's coming for the Miami game. It was looking like maybe he was going to try for the Alabama game, and then the Miami game got scheduled. So he'll be there for that. I think that's a good one. And I think like a bunch of big names jumped in that as he started camping over the summer. Like I think Georgia's in there as an offer, but I think for you to get him on campus so quickly, and again, the kid lives in Sweden. Like it's not like Luke Francis, who lives in Miami now, like the kid is in Sweden.
This is a true international prospect.
Yes, so it's kind of cool that the kid's like coming here all the way from Sweden. And then DeAnthony Lafayette was one of the first offers right after they missed on guys, but this is one that I feel like has gone cold a little bit. I've tried to text him and see if anything, how the communication's going. It's been reported that he is probably going to visit Florida State at some point this season, but nothing as I know now on the books yet. He's probably the one out on this list. And then Cameron Wilson and Jarius Rodgers, who we talked about last week. So we don't really need to get into those. But out of all this list, that's one I've probably heard from the least or heard about the least. So that's one like you wonder about. He's committed to LSU. He's from Orlando. Him being from Orlando is one where you wonder if the Florida State offer holds some weight at all because he's an in-state kid. Miami's also after him, and I believe it was Oklahoma. So he's still got a lot of options there. And he's a kid that's looked at more as a backup on the board, and that's why he's getting all these calls now. But it's just one that hasn't stuck a lot in my opinion.
Yeah, they're just too late. Frankly, I don't see this going anywhere. They're just way too late. And I don't think it's necessarily their fault because I do think you make a good point when he's probably down the board for a couple of programs, mainly because of his size. I mean, he's only 6'1". He's a smaller edge guy. Honestly, there's kind of discrepancy between whether he's a jack linebacker or if he's a true defensive end. This was a kid that I saw in March, actually, and I liked his game, and I thought that FSU probably should put in an offer. He's got enough there in terms of physical traits in order to be able to play. But that size is definitely something that you can't teach. And I think that's why a lot of programs stayed away initially. And this is the problem when you miss on a bunch of your big guys at first. This is something that we saw last year with Florida State and its defensive edge recruiting. When you're going after guys like what was the defensive end that was committed to Rutgers and then went to Georgia? Chase Linton.
Yep.
There's guys like that where you come in way too late, or like a Toby Hostrup, you come in late. Now that was a relatively open recruitment, mind you, but
that was a very weird one.
Yeah,
that's a rare one.
That is one hell of a story.
Look
really up cool. if you're listening to this back on the podcast channel, go look up Toby Hostrup. Go look at his highlights. If you don't remember who that kid is, a freak of nature is what that kid was.
And he's only been playing football less than a year.
Insane. Anyways, to be back on point, this is the problem that you run into when you exhaust all your previous options and you have to go after a kid that is already committed and for the most part locked in. Like LSU was a very quality offer. That's obviously an incredibly powerful and strong program, and he seems extremely locked in. Florida State got here too late. I would be extremely surprised if something developed here. I think you have better options with Gustav, with Cameron, with Jarius Rogers, with Chris Carbin. I think in terms of
and I think you can easily land one of those four.
And
easily.
well, and I think the only reason that maybe Florida State is even considered here is because they kind of have a unique opportunity in terms of what that jack role is, which to your point earlier in the show, what the hell is it?
I didn't see it. I'm excited to see it. That's one of the things I'm excited to watch.
We have an idea. You and I talk to Tony pretty regularly. We have an idea of what we think it looks like and what he wants it to look like. But when we're sitting up there in the press box in Doak a couple Saturdays from now, what is that actually going to look like? How do we ID that? How is it versatile? And that's something that these recruits are going to need to see too. But yeah, with DeAnthony, I just don't see it. Florida State was too late. So.
All right. Well, I think that's all we have, right? We're kind of out of time here.
Yeah, I think we're pushing against the time barrier.
All right. So next week, to add to it, we're going over Bama stuff, basketball and football. And then we're going to go over where we think commits stand, because there were some reports about Brandon Bennett from Marcus Benjamin at Rivals and Tadarius Huge from John Garcia Jr. at Rivals, that they're still talking elsewhere. For those two, I still feel good about where Florida State stands. I'm not really worried, to give the small tidbit of it. I wouldn't be worried at all, really. But we're going to talk about more commits and where we think they stand right now next week as well. So those are the three things to look forward to: football recruits, basketball recruits, and where commits stand.
All right, that should about do it for episode 2 of The Warpath. Thank you for your eyes and your ears, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back next Friday to preview the Alabama game, gives our thoughts on some commits, and of course, much, much more. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week.